know that you're always on my mind, girl. Yeah.
Tiki with his tune called Always on My Mind here on the Radio Wammo Breakfast. Time now is 18 minutes past 8.
Just tell me where the money's coming. Show me the money. Show me the money.
I've got to tell you this.
It's coming from the Chinese. He's going to borrow it from the Chinese. That's right.
State of it is with Selwyn Manning, care of scoop.co.nz for another week. Election 2 on the campaign. G'day there, Selwyn.
Yeah, g'day, Bill. G'day, Glenn. How are things?
Very, very good. So that was a wee clip at the beginning there of the second leaders' debate between Phil Goff and John Key. That was the one hosted by the Press newspaper.
Yes, that's right. And certainly, you know, into this week too, it's a bit of an election grab going on. The initial sudden grab of public respect by Phil Goff and the Labour Party was certainly short-lived. Got to midweek, like we know, that was arrested. This election, Glenn, it was always going to be about the economy. All it took really, and looking back and evaluating that, was really a one-liner, a clever jab from the National Prime Minister John Key to arrest Goff's confidence. Labour's rise in the polls suffered, obviously, and we'll see how that kind of trend continues on. But the one-liner, of course, was John Key's "Show us the money." You know what we just heard there. It's a debating slogan. It was almost a comedy routine in a sense. So the tactics kind of went. It got the majority of the crowd on side with John Key. That's what he was doing there, and he turned the joke on his opponent. And man, let's have a look at that again just to see the effect on Phil Goff here.
An action replay, if you will. Here it comes.
An action replay.
Simple question. What's the first year you earn any money from your capital gains tax, and how much do you get?
I'll tell you the answer to that. It starts gradually because it's not...
Okay, what's the first year and how much do you get?
It comes in about, probably about 2016, and it ramps up.
Okay.
But I'll tell you this as well.
I'll
tell you this as well.
Let me answer one more question.
When you sell the assets, John, listen for a moment. When you sell the assets, John, you can only sell them once.
Okay.
You can only sell them once, and you lose the dividends forever.
Okay. The crowd was on the side of only one character on stage at that point.
Oh, absolutely. Now, Goff's biggest mistake, he hesitated. To not have the answer at his fingertips, that was the problem. He had time, he needed time to think, to consider a proper reply. By the time he digested all the possible angles that could be thrown at him, the moment was gone. The momentum was lost, and Goff had lost that crowd. Of course, right from the first jab, Goff should have turned to Key in a sense and pointed his finger and said something like, like he did in the first debate, "Oh, we'll show you the money and everything else, and that money's going to come tomorrow, mate. Those cards on the table will be there tomorrow morning, but I say this to you, show the jobs. Where are the jobs, John Key?" He could have taken that, but he was absolutely thrown, and I think it showed a frailty that Labour's management of the information was set in stone. Obviously, the numbers were waiting to be rolled out there, but it was going to be a couple of days later, and that was a strategic kind of flaw in Labour's rollout plan there. But looking back, Glenn, I think that this is an interesting kind of way of looking at these kind of things and putting it into a context. Every election campaign, it has an iconic moment, a decisive moment, if you like. Take the 1984 election. It was lost by National for many reasons, but it's probably best remembered for that moment when David Lange, as the leader of the Labour Party back then, he pitched to his opponent, wasn't Sir then, but Robert Muldoon, the leader of the National Party and incumbent Prime Minister. And he said to Muldoon, as he gave him basically a lecture, "You too have a part to play in rebuilding New Zealand." And Muldoon's reply was a sarcastic, in the background kind of comment, "I love you, Mr. Lange." And Muldoon looked defeated for the rest of that election campaign. Let's go back in time, really, and have a look at this little segment of that 1984 debate, Glenn.
And I say to you that is something which is still worth striving for. And I say to those people out there who are part of those who are your traditional support who will be moving this time, I won't spurn them after Election Day either. They're going to be part of that recovery. And when we do it, we'll be doing it for those 100,000 people who are on special work or unemployed, to stop putting New Zealand into hock endlessly overseas, to get the young with a chance of a good education unlimited by the size of their parents' purse, to bring some sanity back to industrial relations where rancour is not the test, to see that people are not set against each other, race by race, region by region, Maori against Pākehā or Islander, to see that capital and labour can work together. And I say to you, sir, that you are the person who could lead that recovery back within your ranks, because I believe that your party has an honourable tradition. And I think that there are people in it who are prepared to be part of that recovery.
Thank you.
I give them, after July 15, the chance to do that.
Thank you very much, Mr.
I love
Lange.
you, Mr. Lange.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Wow, that is quite a trip back.
Yeah, it is a bit of a trip back, and you can see kind of the command and the rollout of the ideas and the rhetoric. You know, it was not by chance. Of course, I suppose the premise of my thing this morning, Glenn, is that these iconic moments that manifest in these election campaigns, they're not. You know, they're created. They emerge, you know, from a leader's deafness, his or her confidence in the players, their candidates, MPs and policies, the knowing that the party machine is well organised, even, and knowing that the party really, what it stands for, and at least an agility and an ability to give an impression of a political brand. And I think all of those kind of things, when they come in and roll into one, that's when you get these kind of things happening. You know, some of the political commentators over the last week, they've suggested that Goff's Labour Party is merely backed by South Auckland, pockets of West Auckland, Wellington Central, and those who live east of Christchurch City. They say that the party does it just is one of an urban base, but it no longer holds the interests of the provinces. That National, for example, is more representative of the needs of those living outside the cities and more understanding of the needs of those who are driving, you know, the commodities, the export markets that keep New Zealand afloat and in the OECD. Perhaps it's a fair comment in a sense, and a party kind of needs the support of the provinces to win in New Zealand, and that's something that we noted prior to the 2005 election that was turning blue. We said it was turning blue in the lead up to the 2005 elections, turning blue in the provinces. And we were proven right on that, and I would say, you know, this is a scoop I'm talking about here. We also noted that the National Party was solidifying its hold on the provinces in the 2008 election. We were proved right again, and we know that you do need the provinces basically to win elections here, the electorate side of the elections under an MMP, as well as, you know, in the past, the first past the post ones. Now, Labour's challenge has always been to win back those provincial kind of electorates that it had in 2005 and certainly in 2008. But that was back then to sum up, a provincial landslide to national. Labour has not been able to make grounds back there again, possibly, and it looks achievable by 2014. But history shows us that Labour, it did have to reconnect way back in 1981 to 1984, and perhaps it's a good opportunity to go back and have a look at, you know, what Longy's take on that in 1984 was, Glenn, with this next clip.
Whether, for instance, you say that you will devise a broad accord if you become the government, which will come together for the management of the country. Can you do that really if you're seen, as Sir Robert hinted, as a party of big cities and workers and socialists?
Well, you see, this country has to do what other countries have done. There is no successful modern economy where management consists of targeting groups within it. You see, you can't have a successful country where you pick off the school teachers, the doctors, the unionists, anyone that actually seems to be thinking of having a contrary view from your own. My party is a party which grew in New Zealand on a broad base. It has, when it becomes the government, a hold on the provincial cities. That's how we become a government. And the movement out there towards that yearning for an agreeing society, rather than a society tearing itself apart, is a very strong provincial phenomenon. They are the people that are just sick to death of all this bickering and carping and abuse. And they want to get on with this country's recovery. It's as simple as that.
And the bickering really hasn't stopped at all, has it?
It hasn't stopped, and I suppose what you can see too is Longy was coming out of an era where the Springbok tour was only 3 years before. New Zealand society was very divided. You had a Prime Minister under Sir Robert Muldoon, or Robert Muldoon back then. That was one where it was very aggressive, almost totalitarian, probably the most totalitarian leadership that we've ever seen in this country. So Longy was responding to that and saying, we need to win the provinces. We're going to do that, and we also need a society that works together for economic gain and social gain. It's an interesting kind of thing. And, you know, Muldoon's response, it was basically one where he critiqued what Longy had said, and perhaps that fits to that old adage that goes something like, you know, if you explain, you lose. Yeah. And Muldoon fell into that trap. But getting on, going on from this, in the last 3 years, I suppose, what we've seen is the Labour Party repositioning itself to a more centrist kind of economic plan, and certainly a centre-left social policy, certainly more so than National did. National was kind of picking up social policy around the centrist areas in the last election. It is not doing it this time around. National is inching its way back to the true centre-right position, the right position that all those years ago Sir Robert Muldoon kind of claimed his government, the National Party government, the National Party at the time, was centre-right, although, you know, history would show it was far more left than any party that exists now in a sense of its economic plan. But while Labour kind of remains supportive of free trade, and in part it kind of tries to embrace those neoliberal kind of economic theories that it revolutionised in the mid-1980s, albeit with a touch of Keynesian kind of economics to try and give it some heart, Labour kind of still struggles around that to a degree. And I think, you know, political scientists many political scientists kind of evaluate, you know, really this internal struggle that Labour has done there. But perhaps, you know, once... Yeah, again, you know, it's a bit of a trip back in time, this episode, Glenn, of this show, in a sense. And I think really going back to defining what the party stood for back in '84 is where it's finally got back to around about now. And once again, let's have a little bit of a look at what was going on back there with what David Longy was saying in that leaders' debate.
Or Muldoon, first of all.
Start with a quote from Lady Astor, who said, "During my 25 years in the House of Commons, the socialists offered nothing but the kingdom of God without praying and the goods of this earth without working. I see the Labour Party as the Socialist Party and the party of the trade unions, and I see the National Party as all the rest." And that's been the way that we've governed, as a broad-spectrum centre-right party devoted to getting New Zealand in recent years through the most difficult times that we've had since before World War II, and getting New Zealand through those times with a measure of success that's not been matched in other countries of our type.
I'd interrupt there, because isn't that exactly what John Key has been saying as well?
Yeah, it is. I mean, what you can see is there are similarities here, you know, and certainly with David Longy's take on the Labour Party, that clip's coming up now, is kind of reminiscent of what Gough and what his team have been trying to do with Labour.
Okay, let's hear David Longy.
It stands for, Mr. Longy.
The Labour Party stands for a society where people don't feel challenged to be nasty about everyone else, where people are drawn together to work in the interests of their country. We want a country where people have a chance to be equal. We don't say they'll end up being equal. Some will excel, some won't make it, but all, male or female, Māori or Pākehā, have to have that chance. And we are determined to achieve a society where people do have that chance in education, in housing, and above all in this election, in jobs. And I say to New Zealanders, ignore claims by others of success. The crisis is there are 100,000 people without jobs. There are classes with more than 40 in them. There are people who are simply ripped out of achievement because this state has stood back and let 3 out of 5 New Zealand families carry the can for the 1 in 5 who have prospered under this government.
David Longy there in the 1984 leaders' debates.
Yeah, now coming through to back to today, you know, this leadership kind of contest that's going on at the moment. Neither party really can kind of profess to be entirely pragmatic. One party's mainstream centre-left with a core of social progressive kind of intentions. The other party is a centre-right proponent of the free market ideologies. It comes down to that. But little kind of, you know, what that means basically is that the Labour in this election There are a lot of questions. Will there be another chance for Labour, for Phil Goff, basically, to position and create one of those iconic moments? Will it be able to create more opportunity to arrest the rise of the National Party? Will there be another iconic moment like we saw created by John Key last week? All of these kind of questions. There's a lot of questions there. Or will it simply be remembered, the iconic moment for this election, will it be remembered as the show me the money election? There are a lot of question marks there, Glenn. In this state of it this week, I suppose, to end it, here's that iconic defining moment so far in this election campaign, Glenn.
Thanks, Selwyn, and we'll see you next week.
Repeating it.
Just tell me where the money's coming. Show me the money. Show me the money.
I've got to tell you this.
It's coming from the Chinese. He's going to borrow it from the Chinese. That's where it's coming from.
Time now here on Kiwi is 8:30.